that's the first time I've ever had my own entrance music in my life. Also, this headset makes me feel a little bit like a Backstreet Boy, so I'm kind of excited right now. So good afternoon, everybody. Hope that you're all still feeling alive after lunch. Today, we're going to be talking about how to accelerate growth using an efficient, highly targeted, multi-channel sales process. So before we jump into things, I just want to introduce myself a little bit further. So my name is Jacqueline Klein, and I'm the co-founder and head of product at Growlabs. I wasn't always a product person, though. I actually started my career in sales and marketing at a web ticketing startup, and it was there where I really experienced the pain points of growing from scratch and how do you really kick off high velocity sales when you're starting from nowhere. And we really had to duct tape a lot of different products together to get to the ability of that high velocity sales process. And it was painful, we did struggle, but it was definitely worth it, and we managed to acquire around 32,000 event organizers onto our platform in the first 2.5 years and achieved an 800% year-over-year growth rate. So fast forward to a few years later, and I teamed back up with the founder of that ticketing startup, and we created what is now Growlabs. And really my career went full circle here because I've been able to take that past experience and all those pain points that I felt in building out an efficient sales process, and I now get to design software that solves all those pain points. So with that being said, so Growlabs is an email automation, outbound sales, and lead generation platform. And in the first 6 months of selling, we managed to go from 0 to $2.2 million in annual recurring revenue. And as you can see, there's a laser pointer on here. As you can see, 53% of that is derived from outbound. So out of all of our revenue generating channels, outbound is the most successful channel for us by far, and we invest the most into that. And that, oh, there we go. So over the past year and a half, we've spoken to over 5,000 different sales teams. And what we've learned the most from these conversations, and these conversations have been from sales discovery calls, customer success conversations, and design research conversations with sales teams as well. And it's clear that everyone agrees that outbound is a channel worth investing in and testing out, but in order for it to be successful, there's agreement around the fact that it needs to be personalized. So the expectation of outbound is it can be a really successful channel, we're going to try it out, and this is what we're going to be like. It's a pretty good position to be in, although I realize those are Canadian dollars, so I apologize. So people are trying outbound, the teams are trying outbound, but they are faced with this reality instead. Not what the outcome was that they were expecting. So with that, we noticed they've tried minimal personalization or selective personalization. So minimal personalization just doesn't cut it, and selective personalization is, of course, not scalable. So they've only seen about a 15% growth in their sales, so there's a lot more to be improved from here. So looking at this, talking to these teams, it's clear that there's a challenge of personalization at scale. So how do you achieve that? Raise your hand if you think personalization at scale is hard. Yes, everyone. Almost everyone. And that's no surprise probably to everyone in this room. We've all faced that in a sales and marketing role. So with the growth that we experienced at Growlabs, we haven't perfected personalization at scale, and I don't really think anybody has. Maybe they never will. But we've done it enough so that we've been able to see rapid growth and have created a predictable process that we can use as our sales team grows and as our metrics and goals grow as well. So I'm going to walk you through how we've been able to achieve that at Growlabs, and I really hope that some of the framework that I walk you through today, you can pull pieces of that and apply it to your own process at your own company. So we're going to start off talking about microsegmentation, which is the key, most important piece of what I'm going to tell you today. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on that. And we're also going to talk about selecting different channels, creating workflows, and using personalized content. And then we're going to talk about funnel efficiency, measuring and optimizing that funnel. So this is what our sales framework looks like at Growlabs. It may look a little bit vague and overwhelming right now, but I'm going to walk you through actually each individual section. So the first step that companies need to take to be able to target companies at scale and close accounts at scale is microsegmentation. So I just want to say now that if you don't spend enough time here and if you don't pay attention to this piece, then you might as well just ignore the rest of everything that I say today, because this is the key that unlocks every other step, and it allows personalization to take place. This does not just require coming up with assumptions of who you're targeting, but it also really requires everyone on the sales team and marketing team to have a deep understanding of what your product does, the values that can be derived from your product, who your potential customers are, and what are their pain points. You really need to get that deep understanding. And that not only applies as a rule to sales and marketing. In design, if you are designing a product, you need to do a lot of research. You need to interview potential users, really understand who that potential user is, what pain points they have, how you can make their experience better, really be able to empathize and put yourself in their shoes. And if you can't do that, your designs will flat out just fail. So it's really an essential piece of building that context up front, and it works for many different parts of an organization. So looking at our sales framework, you can see at the top we have our 5 ideal customer profiles. So these are the ones we have internally at Growlabs, or they're an example of some of them. Your organization will obviously have your own ideal customer profiles, but as you can see, under each profile, we have a bunch of what we call different microsegments. And microsegments are more granular views of your higher level ideal customer profile. So while you have an idea of like a tech SaaS bucket, that could be broken down into many different pockets depending on variables like their location or their specific vertical, the company size, how much funding they've raised, what's their revenue, what technologies are they using. So by looking at these key attributes, you're going to be able to segment them into more granular pockets. An example of this as well would be at that ticketing company that I mentioned earlier. We are targeting event organizers, and we can have like medium-sized event organizers as an ICP, but there's so many different categories of types of events that you can look at. So we would have a different strategy depending on what type of event organizer that they are. So a food event versus a trade show. So what are the benefits of microsegmentation? A lot of them are probably pretty obvious to a lot of you here today. It can increase conversion because it's going to allow you to speak specifically to each different microsegment's pain points. So if you can fully understand in this microsegment what pain points do they have and what pieces of what you offer would be most interesting to them. So what is the value you're bringing to them? Having these segments will allow you to create campaigns where you can speak specifically to each segment at scale. Closing bigger deals, because the more you understand who you're targeting and what they'd be willing to pay for and what value you bring to them, they're going to be more receptive to what you're offering, and you're going to be able to offer the right product at the right price to the right people. Snowball effect. So if you are starting from scratch and you're trying to just address everybody at once, it's going to be really hard to have a large perceived market share because you're just getting out of the gate. But for if you're able to focus on these small segments, then you're able to grow within a smaller segment, increase the perceived market share because you're working with a few of the well-known companies in a specific segment. They know each other, they speak to each other. You can use examples of customers you're working with within their space and increase that perceived market share and eventually grow via word of mouth and referrals as well. So that's something that's really difficult to do if you go broad, but if you can go as specific and granular as possible, then your messaging is going to resonate, your networking is going to work well for you, and the snowball effect can work really well. And then, of course, improve product. So the more you can really focus on the different offerings that you have and who will be receptive to them, and the more you work with your microsegments, the more you're going to be able to learn what people want really from your product. You're going to be able to collaborate with your product team, let them focus on how they can improve the offering, really refine it, and potentially even like split pieces of the product based on the microsegments that are really high value, and be able to charge different things based on that information. And it's at this point I also really want to emphasize, because I don't think people talk about this enough, is there's so much information that sales has that product teams need to be aware of. I highly encourage close collaboration between product teams and sales and marketing teams, because it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So for one, you're going to be better at sales and marketing if you have a deep understanding of your product and your offering, and you're going to be able to build a better product if you understand what the prospects are saying on these calls, or what your customers really want. So there needs to be that really open line of communication between product and sales and marketing. At Growlabs, I actually sit in a room filled with AEs, and I shadow sales calls, and our customer success is telling us every single day what our customers are saying. So there's a very, very strong feedback loop in our company. So segmentation, how do you get started? It's a 4-step process, which of course in each step there's a lot of steps, but just to simplify it. So the first piece is you want to establish that high-level value-based hypothesis and make assumptions of the value that can be derived from your product and who would value from that. So one example would be at this ticketing company. Here's value-based hypothesis number 1. We help small event organizers sell more tickets to their events online using promotional tools and built-in marketing tools. And then another one could be, we help huge conference and event organizers sell huge volumes of tickets without their websites crashing. So we're talking about 2 completely different personas, 2 totally different features of this product, but it's one product. So as many of these little verticals and use cases that you can come up with, that's going to really help guide the rest of your strategy from there. So once you've done that, you can then generate some data. So if you already have a list of who your best customers are, you want to put that together, and but before you can really do much with that, make sure that you are cleaning that data. So of course, if you had this list for a few years now, you probably want to go in and make sure your records are up to date. So there's a lot of data enrichment tools out there now, so that's really helpful for that step. There's also potentially some key attributes missing on some of those records, so you want to make sure those are all filled in and the records are up to date, and then you can analyze it. Very important step, because then once you've analyzed that, you may be able to identify some interesting insights about who those customers are in smaller groups. So you want to look for trends across your customers of, are there pockets that they fall into, and what are the fences between these groups? Are they in a grouping in a few different specific industries? Are there specific job titles or decision makers that you're in touch with? What are the sizes of the companies, et cetera? So a lot of the attributes I listed earlier. And from there, you may end up with like a few high-level ICPs. And what you can do is that process for each individual ICP to find even smaller pockets within each of them. And then you may end up with a lot of options, so it's a little bit overwhelming. Where do I now focus? Like, who should I start targeting and reaching out to? So what you're going to want to do is evaluate the attractiveness, of course, of all of those different microsegments. And this process is going to be different for every company, of course, because you have different scoring frameworks. But depending on what your sales and marketing goals are, will probably dictate how you measure that. So if you are going up market, you probably will use different variables that you're measuring, versus if you want to start going high velocity into SMB. So you want to iterate on that process until you feel good about your microsegments. Some characteristics of a good microsegment would be that they're easily identifiable and that you can easily distinguish them. So you can describe to someone, oh, we target this type of persona, and you know exactly the key attributes that are important, and you know that they share, within a microsegment, they all share very similar pain points, and they have similar buying cycles. And these steps are going to help you find and target those prospects with personalized and relevant messaging at scale. So at Growlabs, we use our own platform to find prospects, but once you have set out these key attributes of who your different microsegments are, you want to be able to find the prospects that you're actually going to target. So how do you do that? Well, luckily there's a lot of database tools available now, us being one of them. So you're able to run searches based on the criteria of each specific segment. So this is an example of one of our microsegments where we would target the VP of sales at mid-SaaS, high-growth companies. So you're looking at, for the job titles, we're searching for VPs of sales, heads of sales, sales directors, directors of sales, and the company size is between 50 and 350 employees. Now, that ties very closely to the type of job title that we're searching for here. So, of course, the company size that you're targeting is going to dictate the type of decision maker or job title that you're actually searching for. So while we want to target sales teams at a bunch of different companies and company sizes, but for each segment, we would have different decision makers in the sales organization depending on the type of the company. Another example, so this one we're targeting founders and CEOs at smaller companies, so we have like 1 to 25 employees here, so of course it's okay to target the CEO and the C-suite. And we're also looking at technologies used as a filter, so we're targeting people or companies who are using HubSpot. And the reason why we did this specific microsegment is because we launched a new integration for our users that it works really well with HubSpot. So we then set out a whole campaign around reaching out to individuals and companies that are already using HubSpot and making sure that that is part of the messaging in that campaign when we reach out to them. So you run your searches, you find your leads. You want to make sure that when you do use a database, whether it be a static list or you're running searches, that there's a way for you to inform that data of the data you already have. So using a blacklisting and deduplication system is really important here because, of course, you don't want to reach out to people that you already have in your database. Once we have prospects, we then also assign them to our reps or our AEs at Growlabs, and I'm sure a lot of companies have a specific way that they like to do this based on different territories and based on the different company sizes that specific reps own, but that's totally up to the company. So making sure that you assign those reps their leads up front. So now that we've figured out that piece, we've identified those microsegments that we want to target, we now want to start engaging with them. So here we want to evaluate the different channels that we're going to be using to engage with these leads at scale. So as mentioned earlier, Outbound is the most successful channel for us. You can't hear me? Oh, double microphone? Okay. Is this better? Okay, great. So as mentioned, Outbound, best channel for us. So I'm going to focus a little bit on Outbound here and how we do it. And then I'm going to jump into the multi-channel approach that we use that helps enhance our outbound efforts. So the benefits of outbound, I'm sure we've all heard of them before, but I want to focus mostly on efficiency. Our sales team spends all of their time talking to interested warm leads and has between 6 to 10 demos every single day for every single one of our reps. And that's because we don't have anyone on our team that spends time doing manual prospecting and research and data entry. That's just not part of our process, and it's great. They love not having to do any of that work. Our sales team is really happy that they're just constantly closing deals and selling. So outbound automation takes out a lot of the manual annoying stuff that sales reps and SDRs typically don't enjoy about their job. So email automation, I quickly want to emphasize that there's a clear difference between marketing email automation and sales email automation. And I'm saying this because a lot of the people that we speak to at Growlabs, some of our clients as well, will ask like, oh, can I upload like an HTML template, or can I insert graphics into my emails? And to that we say, well, no, because it's not a marketing email. This is a sales email strategy. So you're crafting plain text emails that are one-to-one. Although it is automated and it is going to be at scale, when someone receives your email and they open it, it should be like, oh, this person wrote this email for me. There is so much in the body of this email that speaks to me and my concerns, and they're clearly going to be able to offer a lot of value. Then that is a completely different interaction than someone receiving an email that has like a button in it and a call to action to download something or to attend something. So this strategy is all about sales email automation. So you want to craft a series of personalized emails mentioning the pain points of each specific microsegment. So you're going to have a sequence for each specific microsegment that you're going to be reaching out to. And I'm not talking about just like changing one word or two words. I'm talking about the full, like everything you say in this template should be unique depending on who you're reaching out to. You're going to want to optimize this as well. The obvious things to A/B test are subject lines and certain things in the body, but in terms of timing and day of the week to send emails, this really depends on the job title and the industry that you're reaching out to. So if someone's role is real estate, then maybe they're more likely to check their email on a Saturday, versus if someone is in sales, then they're likely to check their email during the week, but who knows if it's morning or afternoon. It really depends when they're likely very busy with clients or prospects. Outbound email, when writing your content, your copy, I really want to press that you should not just sound like jargon, and like a little bit robotic. It needs to, when you write an email, you should really think like, would I reply to this? Is this something that I would read and be like, oh yeah, this person actually cares, or they understand what I do, and they could probably help me. And it's casual in tone, and they want to set up a time to chat potentially. So this is your opportunity to connect with somebody. Of course, we know people get emailed all the time with similar sort of strategies, but it's really about putting in the effort to try and differentiate yourself, and one of the key ways of doing that is showing that you can add value and you understand how you can help them. So an outbound email sequence should have between 6 to even 10 touch points. Most of our email sequences are between 6 and 8 emails long, and that's because we have seen over all of the emails sent through our system, out of all the prospects that reply, 50% of them reply after the second email. They don't reply to the second email, they reply at any of the emails after that. So while many people may give up after the first 2 touch points, it's clear from the data that you should not do that, because you're losing 50% of those opportunities. And even between 18 and 20% of people will reply after the 6th email. So it's really all about timing. Sometimes when you're doing outbound like this, you don't fully understand. There's not necessarily a cue or a signal that that person is ready to buy. So it's really just about spreading them out over time so that you can reach them when they are ready. And this is a framework of what an outbound sequence looks like for us. You can see the first email is your chance to really introduce yourself and build that credibility. And then all of the follow-ups are just more opportunities for you to add value in different ways. So whether that be offering case studies, mentioning other clients that are similar to them that you work with, being able to just share content and data and information that is relevant to them. And you can see there are some pauses in here that are quite long, so 8 to 10 days, 14 to 16 days. And again, that's just because we don't know when they are sales ready. So, and it's not super urgent. It's not like someone has shown intent, they signed up for something on your website, and now you want to email them as much as possible until you get them within the first 2 weeks. It's not really about that. It's just about having a good pace. You don't want to come across as annoying and emailing them like twice a week, every single week. That's just no bueno. So this is an example of a template. I don't recommend copy and pasting templates at all, but I do think it's important to realize that there are so many opportunities for you to personalize per segment in an email template. So knowing exactly the type of value that you're going to mention, or the main benefits that you're going to be mentioning in each template, understanding that you're not just listing features, you're listing how the features help. And also being able to actually acknowledge the pain points in the body of that email. And again, that's going to be different for every segment. So I like to say this, but to me, personalization at scale is not about merge tags. Of course, merge tags help you say hi, first name, and company name, but your template is really the core of how you do personalization at scale. Like that's the key to resonating with your audience. So this is, to me, the most exciting part of what I'm going to tell you today. A lot of what I'm going to go through is very new to us, and we like to, I guess, stay on the cutting edge and test out every new sales trick or hack that you, whatever you want to call it. So while we're doing outbound automation to our prospects, so we're reaching out with them with very highly targeted, personalized emails. At the same time, we're able to target those leads and warm them up with ads through Adderall even before they get the first email from us. So we're warming up those leads with ads. We are also potentially using bot integration, so companies like Drift and Intercom are getting more sophisticated from a sales standpoint, meaning we can have an outbound campaign, and if somebody opens our email, clicks the link, goes to our website, our bot can know, hey, this person's on your website right now, this prospect should be aware of it, and you can actually chat with them while they're still on your website. That's really cool, like catching them right at that time and having the rep who owns that lead aware that that person's on the website right now, probably having, that's a hot lead. And then of course integrating with Slack, giving our reps notifications based on certain engagement points from this campaign. So I'm gonna go through two of my favorite pieces of this multi-channel workflow. So warming up targeted accounts with ads, as mentioned, we're able to have this email campaign and also have ads going to our leads at the exact same time, and that we are able to do that because Adderall has an audience that allows you to upload a list of email addresses and domains, and then they can then be identified within the Adderall network. So then you can target those people with ads while you're emailing them. So imagine your prospect gets to work, checks their favorite website or publication, sees your ad, goes to their inbox, and they happen to have an email directly from an AE at the company. So this actually does work for us really well. You can do it also based on segments and campaigns that you're running. So segment-specific messaging with the ads. So having the separate audiences and campaigns in Adderall that match the campaigns and audiences that you have in your email automation. The goal here really is to align your sales and marketing and to increase conversions across all of your channels. So as you can see, we ran a test campaign where we were emailing the same audience. One of them we didn't put ads for, and one of them we did. The one that we were warming up with Adderall, we saw a 50% boost in response rate and a 33% boost in the positive replies from that campaign, which is pretty significant. We are going to continue to do this. This is an example of how we use Slack triggers. So we basically set up this integration where we can say, hey, if a lead opens our email 5 times, send that rep a notification in Slack that says, hey, your lead, this person, has opened your email 5 times. You should give them a call or message them on LinkedIn. Super powerful. And of course, after all said and done, and you've done that first piece, the first 2 pieces of what I've told you so far really well, you're probably going to have a lot of volume now. So your leads are going to be working with your reps are going to be working with a lot of new leads, and you need to make sure you set up a funnel that is efficient and does not bombard them with all these manual tasks that they need to do to be able to keep up with this new volume of leads that are coming through. So for each microsegment, one really powerful thing you can do to be even more personalized at the top of the funnel is having specific landing pages for each microsegment. And while that may sound a little bit crazy, like, oh, I'm not going to get my software engineers to build 20 different landing pages, it's not about including your software engineers in this actually, because there are tools that allow you to create drag and drop websites that are super replicable. So you can have a template and then reuse it a bunch of times for all your different segments and be able to just swap in and out specific things like a few keywords and the images. So you can see an example here. Square does this really well. They have a landing page specific to all the different types of customers that could use their POS system. So here's a landing page for spas. Here's a landing page for restaurants. You can see they're basically the exact same template. They just replace the cover image and a little bit of the messaging. So that's super scalable. Of course, having automated demo scheduling is pretty key when you're doing high velocity, high volume sales. You don't want your reps to have to do all this back and forth to be able to schedule times that they're going to speak to their prospects. So having a smart calendared and demo tool is really important in this process. We use Calendly, which has been great, and we can set it up to have specific round robins or however you want your lead routing to work. If people are just coming on your website and booking demos there, it can be set up in a way that you want specific types of leads to be sent to specific reps. One also important thing about having these calendar systems in place is that you can have reminders sent to the prospects and let them know, like, oh, you have a call tomorrow with this company, and it allows them to reschedule as well if they need to. And that way, you're not going to have to deal with so many no-shows. Having specific collateral for each of your segments will allow your reps to follow up after demos with stuff that resonates more with that audience. Having an efficient system to send proposals and quotes so that it's really quick. I could just put in a few pieces of data and then I already have a proposal ready to send off. We use PandaDoc for that. And then of course you always want to measure, optimize, and scale all these new efforts that you have in place so that you can figure out which channels and which verticals are working really well for you, and then of course decide where to spend your time more in the future. These are metrics that we track in our Salesforce. I'm definitely not going to go through them, but take pictures. These things are key for us to be able to know how to improve our efforts over time. So just to recap the core takeaways from today, from this, not from all of today. That's a lot. We have to identify our microsegments. A lot of companies don't spend enough time here, so focus on as a hyper-segmentation strategy. Craft your email sequences tailored for each segment. Align sales and marketing to do these multi-channel workflows. Set up that efficient funnel to be able to manage that crazy high volume now that your awesome sales team is going to get to experience. And track those key metrics so you can improve over time. There we go. And that is the sales framework. I hope that makes more sense now looking at it. That is a wrap for me today. Thank you all so much for listening.